Díomh agus fáilte isteach go Q&A na híthe nacht and so our Bitesize Beo or YouTube. Welcome in to Bitesize question and answer session with me, Ben, and my colleague Emma here on Bitesize, coming to you live on YouTube for around about the next hour, Emma.
Looks like it. Hopefully, we'll see. Ben?
Tá má am sais tréachta hí sa gobar níos luatha inniuh feige lé. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm well, thank you. I've already put in a full day's work today. Yourself?
Well, Mars old Dutch Ben Thomas size time, so I'm a little bit sick. So to any of our viewers listening, I'm sorry about my voice. Next month I'll be back to my beautiful speaking voice, so you'll have to forgive me for my my scornach time and so, but Arenos Tomiga Bra. Yeah, so we just welcome any questions to come into the chat as per usual. Have a conversation with us in here. We'll be keeping an eye on our on the live chat there, and of course afterwards when this live is over, we welcome any comments and we'll get back to you as well in the comments below. So Ben, while that's on Héadceist a léamh beidir.
Diana, I have a question for you here from Barry McConnell, and he says, lenitions, can I pronounce them correctly? Sorry, lenitions, I cannot pronounce them correctly. Can you please help?
Well, Barry, I can help you a little bit. I can give you a taster of it, but practice does make perfect, and getting used to the way that Irish is written and how it's pronounced as you read it. So lenitions or séimhiú or séimhiú basically is a H that is placed after a consonant in Irish, and what it does is it lenites the sound or softens the sound. Now, I've actually had some people say, well, does it actually soften all of the sounds? It does. It's supposed to anyway. So there's actually only certain letters that can take lenition in Irish. So I made a little list for you, so you can have a look at them. So that is B, C, D, F, G, M, P, S, T. I think I have them all there. So what happens is a word that would begin with a B, for whatever reason, be it that the definite article is before it and it's a feminine noun, that the B then would be lenited, or we get a séimhiú, and a H would be added and the sound would be softened. So I made a list of example words, because it's quite hard to just kind of pronounce these without any context, you know, just by putting a H on it. So I'd prefer to give it to you in context. So I have a random list here that I came up with. So the first one is ban, which means woman. So when you might add a H onto that, it would then be van. So BH would be a V sound. Now, we can get into the nitty gritty of the BH in certain instances of V versus W, but here in this case, it would be van. Cat would be cat with a séimhiú or a lenition on it. It would be chat. So that's kind of a throaty sound. Chat. So cat changes to chat. So the third one then is durus, which is door. And then that would be ghurus. So not so much chat, but ghurus. So almost like a throaty G.
Well, I'm going to a bit of mercy for Emma here, because I can hear throat. So there you have F, you have fogra, which would be a sign, and then you put the H on it, it's going to be ogra. So it's basically making that F silent. Then go is voice, and when you put the H there, lenition or aspiration, as I like to call it, because that's what the Christian Brothers called it when I was growing up. So ro is what you get there. It's going from go to ro. Then mock, son, it's going from mock to, in our case, Munster speakers, vok. You probably shouldn't get too much into this, but Connemara, a wok. And that's something that people in Connemara say quite a lot. It's a bit like Australians saying mate, you know, mate. They say a wok this and a wok that, in a sort of my good fellow sort of way. Then we have P, poshte, with the H's, foshte, so it's a sort of F sound. Solus, a light, it's going from solus to hullus. and then tach, a house, is going from tach to hach. So it does soften it in every case, except I might say the C, which makes it kind of a more of a sound. Which English speakers find a little bit difficult, because I think aesthetically it's a sort of an ugly sort of sound to the ear of somebody who's raised speaking English. It's not really the sort of sound that you hear very often. I hope.
Indeed, Garmahagut Ben saving me there. It was the wrong one to be doing with this throat, isn't it? Yeah, so that's a good question. So Garmahagut Barry, thank you, Barry, for bringing that up. And if you are a member of Bitesize, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I'm not too sure. But for members, we do have a lesson on this in our Ashtar reference pack. And we have a whole module on initial mutations. So you have the Urú, the Séimhiú, the lenitions, what we just talked about, and other different initial mutations that occur in Irish. And with that, you get a list of them in context. And you also get some example sentences. And of course, our handy voice recordings, so you don't have to re-listen to this YouTube video over and over again to practice. If you were to sign up to be a member of Bitesize, that would be one of the lessons that you could take on to start. Okay, so on Kate Kesh Ella, so the next question comes from Kevin. Now this is actually a three-parter, right? So but it's all to do with the same thing. And it's a good question, actually, because this is something that I often talk about my students with. So Kevin says, as a complete newcomer to Irish, I have what I fear are some very basic questions, which don't worry, Kevin, you need to start somewhere. Nevertheless, some help is very much appreciated. So here goes. Number one, what is the different usage between tá something uaim and teastaíonn something uaim? Are they interchangeable? Okay, so that's the first part. I think I'll break it down like that. So what is the difference between tá something uaim and teastaíonn something uaim? And are they interchangeable? Ben, what does happen to?
For the most part, they're the same. I want and I want. But one case where you could say they're different would be, let's say I want sleep, as in you haven't slept for 2 days because you're out partying or whatever, and you need to sleep. Tá cula uaim would be a statement that I need sleep. It's not that I want sleep, that, you know, I'm choosing sleep over anything else. I've reached the stage where I really, really just need to sleep. For me, that's not the same as teastaíonn cula uaim. That's I desire sleep, I'm choosing it. But in most other cases, other than a situation like that, I would say that they're pretty much interchangeable. What do you think? In most other cases, other than a situation like that,
I think the same, actually. It's a question, when you look it up online, see what these are actually called are modal constructs. And you'd come across them in German and you'd come across them in English as well. So want, need, should, could, all of those. But it's more of a construct in Irish because you have to mash a couple of different words together to create this construct to express this feeling. So when you actually look up modal constructs, there is always the question of, is it want versus need, or which is which? It depends on the context. Now, I've never been in the situation where I've misunderstood someone. I know there's a big difference if you really want to get into it, you know, needs and wants and all of that. But there's multiple constructions for both want and need. So if you really want to put emphasis on something, you could use it a different way, or you can put, you know, teastaíonn sé gomór uaim. But again, I don't think there's much of a difference, and you can use them pretty much interchangeably. Now, Kevin does ask the same thing again, but in a different way, on teastaíonn something. So that's actually the question form. Does that indicate want or need? And again, if you look up the verb teastaigh, I need to double check now, but I'm pretty sure it says more so to need. Ben, what do you happen to? Is it?
Well,
It does say the verb teastaíonn.
Well, I mean, I think it's more to want. Again, it kind of comes back to, you could have teastaíonn cústálam a rinne. It's like that fella needs a beating, you know. He's not looking for it. That's what he needs. You know, there's that kind of thing. But I mean, in terms of needing something, I'd be more inclined to use the word gá le relate.
Yeah. Actually, I just looked up teastaíonn again. It says be wanted or needed. So they're both absolutely interchangeable. So the two ways you use them is either the verb be, so tá in this case in the present tense, plus the object. So for example, isce, tá isce uaim. So you're using the preposition o and the subject. And this is where you're getting uaim. So uaim is actually just the prepositional pronoun of o. So you have uaim, uait, uig, uhi, uing, uiv, uhu. So you have all of those. So I just gave you an example. Tá isce uaim or teastaíonn isce uhi. I actually saw a misspelling there. Sorry, uhi with an A. So tá isce uaim. I need or I want water. Again, if you really need it, I wouldn't use teastaíonn, I don't think. I'd use gá, as Ben said as well. So I hope that helps, Kevin. For the most part, you can interchange them. Long story short, you can interchange them all, or both of them even.
It's a subtle you'll get away with interchanging them. There are cases where one is more appropriate than the other, but it's a very subtle thing, I think.
And if you really want to be sure about it and really want to get across the fact that you need something, maybe use a different construct to be extra sure that you know you need it rather than you're just looking for it or you want it. Cercalor. So Shin, what we might do is we'll go to the chat because Daniel, a Grow member, has popped in a question there. And it's actually a question I was discussing last week. Now, Ben, I'm actually going to put the question to you first because it's not something that I've confirmed, but I did a little, I actually kind of I realized it while I was talking about it in class. So Daniel says, Ben, is there a way to distinguish between the use of fós as still and its use as yet?
I don't think so, really. And so where there's an ambiguity, I'd be inclined to use a different word. So agóní you might use for still. So I'm just looking at the example here that Daniel has. We'll do the húiseacht fós. Are you still awake? I would say that one thing you could do is if you change the order of the words, if you were to say will tú fós the húiseacht, I would say that's more inclined to mean are you still awake rather than are you awake yet. That's one way.
That's what I came up with. I got this question, believe it or not, last week in class, and I actually said the same thing. I kind of was thinking, how would you, are you still, so someone asked, how would I say still versus yet? And it's, I don't think it's confirmed. It's not, I haven't confirmed it anywhere. No one has actually, it's not written down in a rule book anywhere, a grammar book, I don't think anyway. I'll welcome suggestions if they are anywhere. But yeah, an bhfuil tú the ghúiseacht fós versus an bhfuil tú fós I the ghúiseacht. An bhfuil tú ann fós versus an bhfuil tú fós ann. So are you there yet? An bhfuil tú ann fós. So by putting fós at the end, are you there yet? Versus, or an bhfuil tú ann fós, are you there yet? Versus are you still there? So it's actually the same. Am I right in saying this, that it'd be the same word order in English almost? Are you still there? I know you could say are you there still, but are you still there?
Are you there still? Still there.
The more common would be still there, I think.
It's interesting because what I was recommending was that you could use a goni, and again, if you change the order with the goni, it'll be like will tú goni the húiseacht or will tú the húiseacht the goni. The former means are you always awake, and the latter means are you still awake.
Okay. Yeah.
So the word order seems to be the thing there, Daniel.
Yeah, it's word order. Now, as I said, I looked it up, but if anyone has the rule anywhere, I'd love to see it. But I think it's word order. It's something I haven't thought about ever. But if you put the question to you, if you say the two sentences, an bhfuil tú the gúiseacht fós versus an bhfuil tú fós I the gúiseacht, they are two different meanings and sentences automatically. So ceist úntach sin, Daniel, gur maith agat, and gur míle maith agutsa as a bheith lin phobal. So Daniel, as I said, is a Grow member and very active on Pobble. So gur míle maith agat. Okay, so what we might do is go back to the questions that were sent in beforehand. Now, to everyone in the chat, Dave, gur maith agah as a bheith anseo, thanks for being here. Hello, everyone, and we welcome questions in the live chat as well, of course. Okay, so I actually have another question for Ben, Tobrona and Ben. But they all want to hear from, well, not they all, but I want to hear from you, plus my voice. So Colleen sent in a lovely message. So Colleen says, as a new Grow member, I've been getting quite a bit out of the Beo sessions on Pobble on Tuesdays with Ben. I wonder what he gets out of it. Does it help him understand the language, the Irish language, even better? And number two, I understand that he's in Portugal. So how does he keep Irish alive in his life outside Bitesize? So I'd like to know this as well, Ben.
Well, first of all, it's very nice of Colleen to think of me. Thank you. Two different questions there, really. And the first question, in a way, partly answers itself, because she says that she gets quite a lot out of it. So part of what I get out of it is what other people get out of it. And of course, it is also work that I get paid for, and money is nice. Everybody likes it. But there are a number of different things that appeal to me about it. It's nice to see people from all around the world getting in touch with each other and enjoying the experience of learning to speak or to use Irish in a relaxed sort of way, where they're not under pressure to get through a certain amount of material and to retain it in order to grapple with the next week's work. One of the nice things about it is the variety of different types of people learning for different reasons. It's nice that there are people in Ireland learning, of course, and young people too, which is really nice to see. It's nice to see the diaspora there. For instance, there's a man in the UK who is the same age as my dad and probably grew up quite close to where my dad grew up, and he's learning Irish over there, and that's a nice thing to see. Then there's a woman in New Zealand whose dad was from the same place as my parents, who emigrated to the UK, raised her there, and now she lives in New Zealand, and he spoke some Irish, and she has memories of going back to Dublin in the summertime as a child, and now she's decided that it'd be a nice thing to learn some Irish. So it's very rewarding for me to see people learning Irish simply for the pleasure of it, rather than seeing them learn it because they're compelled to. People who have no real contact in terms of ancestry and background as well. You know, you have people in Germany learning Irish simply because it appeals to them, because they like it. That's a nice thing. So I enjoy seeing other people discover things or consider things. Does it help me to understand the Irish language a bit better? I don't think so, really, because, well, I suppose it's a bit like understanding something that you understand already, but it's kind of like finding out how the bits of the clock move, I suppose. You can still read the time, but it's like, so sometimes you get into the minutiae and, well, it could nearly drive you mad, really. It's these things that you've absorbed, but then it's kind of like backward engineering. You're trying to pick out why things function a certain way. And yeah, certainly it's interesting. I don't know if it really helps me to understand things better. And then in terms of the second part of the question, I have 4 different jobs, and 3 of them are based in working with Irish. So I'm doing this, and then I work for another kind of well-known Irish language school, and I work as an Irish language journalist. So I think I'm fortunate that I can live pretty much anywhere and still do that kind of work. So my exposure to the Irish language, sad to say, I suppose, as somebody who was living in County Clare before I moved here, isn't really any less than it was while I was there. I haven't really based my life around, or my family around, the Irish language. So if that had been a choice that I had made, certainly there were families in Ennis that met up and did things through Irish, but that wasn't top of the agenda for my family, and it's not something that I would push on them. My wife is not Irish, for instance. It's a nice kind of feature of one of the positive features of the internet and telecommunications is that you can be far away and still keep in touch. I was on the phone to my brother for an hour yesterday, and that's in Irish. If I ring many of my friends, it's in Irish. So with Radio na Gaeltachta and websites like Tuairisc, where you can have fairly solid, just general journalism through Irish, my exposure to Irish is pretty healthy, even though I'm living in Portugal. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Colleen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel I identify with a lot of that now. I don't have a wife and kids, Ben, but I did base myself abroad as well, and I somehow, well, I don't know. I grew up in Dungarvan, and as you know, the Ring Gaeltacht is very near me, and my primary schooling was in Irish. But since then, my family didn't speak Irish. We weren't an Irish at home family, but I found that my work and my life in Irish has gotten much stronger, I suppose, or my connection with Irish has gotten stronger since I moved abroad. Now, you also could argue that I was in college for 4 years and worked for 6 months and then moved abroad. So I kind of, it's the natural progression. But yeah, it's great that you can be abroad and still have contact to the language, because I think there's not many Gaelgori in Leipzig where I am, other than the students that I teach. So I'm slowly building up maybe my own Gaeltacht here in Leipzig. If I'm here for long enough, all of the students that pass through me can we can join a community. But at the moment, my biggest connection would be, well, Bitesize. I'm lucky enough that I get to hop online once a week and talk to the team Oscailge in Irish, which I find it's actually quite important for me, because you lose it when you don't speak it that often, and I don't. And sometimes I try and ring my sister. I'm jealous, Ben, because I try and talk to her in Irish, but she's more interested in speaking German with me. We both have Irish and German, so she has more of an interest in German, but I live here, so it's boring. So it's kind of, she's in Ireland, bored of Irish, and I'm in Germany, bored of German. So we need to maybe switch spots for a while. But yeah, it's great that you see everyone online, and I really like how you said that people are just learning Irish for the enjoyment, the pleasure of it, because that's what people ask me. For the students in the university here in Germany, why are they learning it? Because it's a lovely language to learn. They don't have to learn it. They don't have a leaving certificate to sit at the end of it. It's just a lovely language to learn, and a very interesting language to learn. I think I've seen a lot of students sign up for my classes just to get the extra credits, and plan on doing one semester, and then they actually end up staying. They come back the following semester because they enjoyed it so much and they did so well. And then they come back for a third semester and a fourth semester. So sometimes they kind of fall into the learning of it. They just take it out of interest. They see it as an option. And then, some of them are my top students. So it's lovely to see. So Colleen Gurmagut, you're in the comments there saying Gurmagut. And yes, the internet is a wonderful portal to another language in the world. Yeah. Sinné go dtír ché go húntaach gur mágad Colleen. Thank you, Colleen.
Is alive. Unfortunately, yes, Luke. If I had an alternative, I'd take it.
I know. Cercalor Horja. Yeah, so we see you all there in the chat. Send in your questions, of course. I see a message there from Sophie Palmer Dorn. Do you chuid chun tágach duine Emma nach chuil tú go má? Tásúla gom gohfuil gacrad go má buin an tanmh as na refresh Bitesize. Gur mágad, Sophie, thank you very much. So I myself and Owen do our weekly newsletters out to both members and non-members of Bitesize. So I'm glad you enjoy them. I do the Friday newsletter to update all of the members of what's going on Pubble, as I am the manager over there, and it gets quite busy. So I like to update everyone to let them know what's going on. Okay, we have a question there about pronunciation of the different pronunciations of uahi. Now, I suppose you're asking the wrong people because myself and Ben speak the same dialect, but Ben, can you happen to Igonacht new up north?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just talking more generally, uahi and uahi. Who says uahi? It's more up north, isn't it? Uahi, uahi, uahi.
Uahi. Do you know what? That's a question now for our Ashter reference pack dealing with dialects. There's a nice healthy plug for you. We actually recently launched, Neil put a lot of work into the dialects, all three of them, and the differentiation between them all in both pronunciation, grammar, and also vocabulary. So that's part of our the reference pack on Ashter. So I don't know if we have uahi in there. I know that we have a gum and a gut and a ge and a k. I can't remember. I don't think we have uahi or uahi. Uha.
I'm not sure. It might be there. Yeah.
There. Yeah. So down in Munster anyway, uahi. Uha. I wouldn't be the expert now to ask that. Cercalor a Horja. Are there any more questions coming in the chat? You can ask us anything. As I said, we launched our our Ashter reference pack module on dialects recently, and Neil is working hard on more to come. Just to update you all, we're discussing lots in Bitesize. What's coming next. You've stuff to look forward to. We actually have a meeting this week, Ben, don't we, on what's coming up next. So I'm really excited to see that, because how long has it been now? It's been just over 3 months since we launched Ashter, the new platform. March, April, May, June. Yeah, well, yeah, 3 months just thereafter. And yeah, we've gotten a good response since then. Ben joined us just shortly after that. So you didn't see our old platform, Ben, but the new platform is very good and we got great responses. So for anyone who is interested in signing up, because not everyone knows, maybe, who watches us on YouTube, that we actually have a course that you can work through yourself. A lot of people might think that we just do these online Q&As and then we do the videos on YouTube. There is actually a service there. If you go to bitesize.irish, you will find that we have 2 memberships. We have Grow and Explore, and each give you different things. Both will give you access to our new platform, Ashter, with Tusma being the course that you work through, self-study course from beginning onwards, along with some other modules, such as Sing a Song in Irish or dealing with dialects, as I just said, or anything in the Ashter reference pack, so on and so forth. And then you would get, with Grow, the exact same thing, plus access to Bitesize Pubble, which is basically our online community where I post daily challenges. Ben is on there every week, hosting Bitesize Beo twice a week now, Ben. I suppose I could just ask how that's going.
It's going good, going well, I ought to say. I need to watch my English as well. So there's a Tuesday morning session at 10 a.m., which is primarily to facilitate people in the Far East and in Australasia. So someone in China, we've New Zealand represented there, but also some early risers on the east coast of the United States. So people who are working during the day can't make it for the 8 p.m. Irish time one. So there's some people who get up at 5 a.m., Emma, on a Tuesday to do Bitesize Beo over there. And you even get the odd person in Ireland who might be doing a night shift or something, or an evening shift during the morning session. So that's growing steadily, which is nice. And then there's the evening session, which is at 8 p.m., which suits people in Europe, people in Ireland, people in the UK, and the United States as well. It's sort of between 12 noon and 2 p.m. in the States, depending where you are. So that's a lively enough group and a nice thing to be doing on a weekly basis.
I was lucky enough to host Bitesize Beo for a couple of weeks in the middle there for a while, and I really, really enjoyed it. The questions that came in were great, and I suppose going back to the question that Colleen asked, does it help you understand the Irish language better? Like the question that Daniel had earlier on about fós, something that but you never thought about, so you actually then you come up with a rule, or you find out a rule that you knew that it's said this way, but maybe you didn't know why. So that's what I love that about Bitesize Beo. And I love the chats afterwards. There's great banter going on. Even in the chat as I was talking, someone would throw in a joke if I said something. The same with my monthly call, my Gleach Cugger Mugger, which I do reading exercises with everybody, and I just love it. I spend about 15 minutes at the start just chatting to them all, and more so about myself, but I like the catch up with all the members. So that takes place once a month as well on Pubble, and Grow members can have access to both of those calls, or all three, if you want to get up in the morning and do it with Ben in the morning and then do it in the evening as well. You could, if you wanted to, double up on your knowledge on the same thing, but either way, it's there. And yeah, actually, just to let all the members who are watching know that my live call will take place next Wednesday. So today week will be the June call for Pubble, for Cugger Mugger. Kerkalore. So we've had a short enough Q&A this week. Not as many questions came in well as last month, because Ben and Owen got really into the depths of Gaelan Corcagoina. So for anyone, I spotted that someone doubled up on a question this month and last month. So if your question wasn't answered in this one, perhaps go back to the previous one and check if your question was answered there. So you can actually always check on the blog after this as well. There's a write-up that will go up in a couple of days' time of all of the questions that we answered plus the answers. One more question actually from Luke. Tá ceiste agam, Emma agus Ben, what is the different uses of urús and séimhiús precisely? Why do they manifest in Irish and why do they happen? Wah, Ben. Broad question, but good one.
Yeah, it is a very broad question. I mean, séimhiús can be used to indicate gender, for instance, in terms of possession. Like, a haher, it's telling you who, I mean, it's not always necessary, but it can be telling you who is being referred to. It's a little clue to who's being referred to. Some of them, I think, are just a feature of making words and combinations of words easier to say so that they roll off the tongue. What do you think yourself?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you there. There's a lot of, if you actually even look at the older spelling of Irish, even back to Old Irish and going forward into Middle, you can see that the spelling was much longer. And lenition was there, even though it wouldn't have been always written down. It was there, and séimhiús were put in to make it easier to say, or just the combinations of sounds. And over time, then the spelling changed and got shortened, basically, or the pronunciation even got shortened then with the séimhiús. It doesn't just happen in Irish. There's urús also. So eclipses also happen in Welsh. The séimhiús are also there up in Scottish Gaelic, as I learned last week. They love their séimhiús. What I found actually is a very interesting point between Scottish Gaelic and Munster Irish. Táme in Gaelic would be háme, which is very much a feature of Munster Irish. So I found that actually an interesting point. So it's not just Irish, it seems to be Celtic languages in general. There's a lot of lenition and eclipses going on there. So in Welsh, instead of just adding the Urú or the letter in front of the other letter, so for example, cat, got, yeah, adding the G onto the C. In Welsh, the same thing would happen. G and C actually are the same combinations as in Irish, but the G would actually replace the C. So you kind of have to do a bit of backwards detective-isms, I suppose, detectivism, to find out what it's actually replacing. Whereas, so I find that a little bit easier in Irish because you can see what it's going in front of rather than trying to remember, you know, when you first start learning, of course. So, yeah, it's a thing with Celtic languages. And there is something as well. There was a lot of syncope and apocope happened in primitive Irish. So that's the loss of what's the word, syllables at the end of a sentence, of an end of a word, and also in the middle of the word. Apocope came first, and then syncope, which happened in uaim or uaim, and you can see actually the dating of words according to, you know, you can actually see early uaim inscriptions versus later uaim inscriptions. You're talking 4th century onwards. You can see some are older than the others just from the shortening, which actually is coming from a lenition being added, so a H. So therefore the sound is softened, as we talked about earlier, and it eventually just disappears. So it's been happening since we were writing on stones, Luke. And it's still, well, I don't think it's getting any worse, but could do.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, when you start to standardize a language, well, then do things stop changing? That's a question to consider. Like, what is grammar? It's a set of observed patterns in language that become a set of rules, to my understanding. So, you know, it's interesting, like things like we always said an Dolive growing up.
An Dolive. I did.
An Dolive, but you're not to write an Dolive. Do you see? So people stop saying an Dolive. You know, so it's an interesting thing. I mean, British English. Spoken English in the UK has changed an awful lot over the last 20 years. And so grammar rules need to change to reflect that. Otherwise, the grammar becomes an antiquated thing. So it's an interesting thing to consider in terms of Irish, because the grammar rules and the structure is quite rigid. But the vocabulary is certainly changing and developing, and new terms and words are being added as they arise. But whether or not there's a case ever for accepting changes in grammar when a language is spoken by so few people is an interesting question. Can they even be observed, or is there enough going on for these things to be noticed even, or the just regional things where people continue to say an Dolive, for instance?
See, that's the problem with me as well, because I'm reading grammar books here, and I'm you know, I'm reading, and I'm reading more than I'm listening, I'd say, right? And I used to say an Dolive, and I definitely would have kept saying that. But now that I read it, I automatically would say an Dolive. So I feel like my Irish is getting a little bit more standardized as I go along. I know there's no standard spoken Irish, but I feel like I'm losing my little the little nahana and the way that I used to speak with my ring Irish. Even my pronunciations of I's, I make a point now to remember to do it, but I would often try and teach my students teen or tin for being sick, but I would automatically say tine or nigh or timple and dinair and all of that. The I is a very much a loved thing. I always loved it about ring Irish, and I have to kind of force myself back into the way I used to speak. So I think I might take up Éireann Dálaimh again. I know it's anti grammar book, but I'd be very happy to use it. Just a comment there. Could have thought of, I used to deliver bread from Cork to Dungarvan, so fresh it's famous. Well, I'm from Dungarvan and I studied in Cork. There's often a time that I needed a lift from Cork to Dungarvan or vice versa. So I could have done with you then a couple of years ago. Ach gohuntach, Fáilte isteach. And just another comment there on dialects. We was versus we were, thou and thee is gone except for Yorkshire dialect. Exactly, that's it. And of course, the famous ye in Hiberno English, which I use a lot here in Germany, and I kind of have to, when I'm going through, you know, me, you, him, her, all of that, and then I succumb to ye. I actually give maybe 4 different examples in case people don't know what ye is. So I say ye, or you, or use, or
There's a
yawn.
definite case for it, like you singular and you plural. I mean, how's that going to work? You need 2 different words.
Yeah, ye is much better, definitely. Carcalore. Well, Ben, is Tócha gur sinné? I think that might be it for this evening.
It is the way that they're trying to save your voice and not sending questions.
Look, gur míle maith, I'm happy now this month that I don't have to burn your ears for too long. So I want to say gur míle maith go léir as teastaíonn. We will be here again next month. So make sure that you can start sending in your questions at any point of the month. We will get to them in the following Q&A. So you can go on to bitesize.irish. There's a little drop-down menu on the top that says live Q&A, and you can submit your questions for the upcoming live at any time. So if there's a question that pops into your head at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, pop it in and we'll get to it next. Plenty of honey and cinnamon. Yeah, I'll do it. Sinead Gadir or Luke or Margaret. So I'm going to sleep now. Bedtime. Ihawa a chorja agus ihawa a then.
Gurmaga.